Li Shenlong Chinese, Pinyin, Li Shenlong born February 10, 1952 is a Singaporean politician and former Brigadier General who has been serving as Prime Minister of Singapore and Secretary-General of the People's Action Party since 2004. He has been the Member of Parliament MP representing the Tegi ward of Ang Mo Kio GRC since 1991, and previously Tegi SMC between 1984 and 1991. Born in Singapore during British colonial rule, Li is the eldest son of Singapore's first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew. He graduated from Trinity College, Cambridge in 1974 with a Bachelor of Arts with first-class honours degree, later promoted to Master of Arts by seniority in Mathematics, and a diploma in Computer Science, now equivalent to a Master's degree in Computer Science with distinction. He also completed a Master of Public Administration degree at Harvard Kennedy School in 1980. He served in the Singapore Armed Forces SOF between 1971 and 1984. And attained the rank Brigadier General before entering politics in 1984, where he was elected as the Member of Parliament MP for Tegi SMC, and since its dissolution in 1991, he has been representing the Tegi ward of Ang Mo Kio GRC. Li had served as Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Finance, Minister for Trade and Industry and Second Minister for Defense under Prime Ministers Lee Kuan Yew and Goh Chok Tong before assuming the office of Prime Minister in 2004. In his first 2 years, his government enacted a 5-day workweek and extended maternity leave days. His proposal to build 2 integrated resorts IRs in Singapore to increase tourism revenue led to the development of the Marina Bay Sands and Resorts World Sentosa. Following the Great Recession, he oversaw the country's economic recovery within 2 years. Further political reforms in 2010 saw increased online activism as well as the number of non-constituency members of parliament and CMPs in parliament. His government has advocated goods and services tax GST hikes to fund social spending and infrastructure development, with the GST expected to be raised gradually to 9% in 2024. In 2019, his government introduced the controversial Protection from Online Falsehoods and Manipulation Act (POFMA) to combat online misinformation. In foreign policy, Lee's government's policy has been to stay neutral in an era of great power competition between China and the United States. Lee's government has had complex and fraught relations with its closest neighbor Malaysia, although the countries have agreed to work on cross-border projects. In 2022, his government strongly opposed Russia's invasion of Ukraine as a matter of the country's principle that a world order where might is right or the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must would be profoundly inimical to the security and survival of small states, and ordered the government to sanction Russia, being the first and only Southeast Asian nation to do so. Lee is frequently noted by the international media as the world's highest paid state leader. His libel suits against journalists and political opponents have been frequently covered by international news outlets. The eldest child of Lee Kuan Yew and Kwa Geok Chu and the patrilineal grandson of a retired storekeeper turned salesman, Lee Chin Koon 1903-1995 and Chu Jim Neo 1905-1980, a chef. Li Shenlong was born at KK Women's and Children's Hospital in Singapore on February 10, 1952, when Singapore was a British colony. His mother has ancestry from Tong An District and Longhu, while his father has ancestry from Dabu County in China. Li was educated at Nanyang Primary School and Catholic High School, where he played clarinet in the school band, 7 and National Junior College before he was awarded the President's Scholarship and Singapore Armed Forces Overseas Scholarship in 1971 by the Public Service Commission (PSC) to study mathematics at Trinity College, University of Cambridge. He was Senior Wrangler in 1973, and graduated in 1974 with a Bachelor of Arts with first-class honours degree, later promoted to Master of Arts by seniority in Mathematics, and a diploma in Computer Science, now equivalent to a Master's degree in Computer Science with distinction. His college tutor, Dennis Marion, later described Lee as the brightest mathematician he had admitted to the college. 11 Balabalada said that Lee would have been a world-class research mathematician, but his father did not realize this and persuaded Lee to leave the field. He subsequently went on to complete a Master of Public Administration degree at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government in 1980. Lee joined the Singapore Armed Forces SOF in 1971, and served as a commissioned officer between 1974 and 1984, and held various staff and command posts, including Director of the Joint Operations and Plans Directorate, and Chief of Staff of the General Staff. He also attended the United States Army Command and General Staff College at Fort Leavenworth in 1978. Lee rose quickly through the ranks in the Singapore Army, becoming the youngest brigadier general in Singapore's history after his promotion in July 1983. Notably, he was put in command of the rescue operations following the Sentosa cable car disaster. Lee served as commanding officer of the 23rd Battalion Singapore Artillery in the Singapore Army before he left the SOF in 1984 for politics. In the 1980s, Lee was regarded as the core member of the next batch of new leaders in the People's Action Party PAP leadership transition that was taking place in the mid-1980s, as Lee Kuan Yew had declared that he would step down as Prime Minister in 1984. Following the 1984 general election, all of the old Central Executive Committee members except Lee Kuan Yew resigned on January 1, 1985. Lee was first elected Member of Parliament for the Taigi SMC in 1984 at the age of 32. He was subsequently appointed Minister of State for Trade and Industry, and Minister of State for Defense. In 1985, Lee chaired the government's Economic Committee, which recommended changes to established government policies to reduce business costs, foster longer-term growth and revive the Singapore economy, which was experiencing a recession at the time. The committee's recommendations included reductions in corporate and personal taxes and the introduction of a consumption tax. In 1986, Lee was appointed the acting Trade and Industry Minister. In 1987, he became a full member of the cabinet as the Minister for Trade and Industry and Second Minister for Defense. In March 1986, First Deputy Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong discussed the question with Lee on encouraging younger Singaporeans to join the party. Goh was firm that the proposed committee should attract only the right kinds of members, ruling out material rewards as an incentive. The proposed youth wing was to encourage the improvement of the system from within, which would give new members a stake in the country's future. Lee later said the establishment of the youth wing reflected concerns by the leadership that the lack of an official channel to engage with the younger generation might lead them to vote for opposition parties and potentially bring the PAP government down. The youth wing was an official tailor-made mechanism to allow dissenting opinions to be heard. Lee was the first chairman of the PAP Youth Committee upon its establishment, the predecessor to Young PAP. 16 On November 28, 1990, Goh Chok Tong succeeded Lee Kuan Yew as Prime Minister. Lee Hsien Loong was made one of two Deputy Prime Ministers, along with Ong Tang Chung. He continued to serve as the Minister for Trade and Industry until 1992, when he was diagnosed with lymphoma. He subsequently relinquished his ministerial position and underwent 3 months of chemotherapy, though he continued to be a Deputy Prime Minister during his illness. The chemotherapy was successful, and his cancer has gone into remission. Lee was appointed Chairman of the Monetary Authority of Singapore MOS in January 1998, 17 and in 2001 he was made the Finance Minister. To ease the growing budget deficit due to falling tax revenues from cuts in corporate and personal income taxes and other factors such as the Iraq War and SARS outbreak, Lee proposed on August 29, 2003 to raise the GST from 3% to 5%, a change that took place in January 2004. Lee initiated several amendments to render requirements for Singapore citizenship less restrictive, notably for foreign-born children of Singaporean women. 18 The changes were made after repeated pleas from MPs and the Remaking Singapore Committee. On July 10, 2004, Lee visited Taiwan, an island claimed by the People's Republic of China (PRC) that has been ruled by the Republic of China (ROC) since 1949. Even after the severing of diplomatic relations with the Republic of China on October 3, 1990 in favor of the People's Republic, the Singapore government maintains a policy of neutrality in the cross-strait relations between the two sides. To facilitate the policy, it was considered important for Lee to get a personal feel for the situation in Taiwan. Ministry of Foreign Affairs officials advised that any visit by an incumbent prime minister would be diplomatically impossible. The visit was hence planned a month before Lee assumed the premiership and in his capacity as a private citizen, not a state leader, with the PRC embassy informed on July 9, 2004. The same afternoon, the PRC government summoned the Singapore ambassador in Beijing and urged the cancellation of Lee's trip, citing the likelihood that Chen Shui-bian's administration would exploit it as a diplomatic coup and use it to promote Taiwan independence, claiming Singapore was making a historical error. Foreign Minister S. Jayakumar replied to his counterpart Lee saying that Taiwan had been told to keep the visit low profile and that it would proceed. China retaliated by cancelling several visits by high-ranking PRC officials to Singapore and delaying planned signing ceremonies, hinting that free trade negotiations would also be pushed back. The matter was further complicated and magnified when Taiwanese media headlined the visit and portrayed it as a diplomatic breakthrough, which raised tensions with the PRC. Singapore published the records of the discussion with the Chinese embassy in its local media to publicize the PRC's strong-arm tactics and failure to commit to a peaceful agenda. On August 28, 2004, in his first National Day rally speech and as Prime Minister, Lee criticized the Taiwanese leadership and populace over their pro-independence stance. He reiterated the reasons for the visit and said that Singapore's decision to stand firm on its vital interests had earned it international respect. 21 relations were eventually amended when Lee met Hu Jintao at the APEC Economics Leaders meeting on November 19, 2004, which signified the end of the dispute. 19 On August 12, 2004, Lee succeeded Goh Chok Tong as Prime Minister and relinquished his chairmanship of the Monetary Authority of Singapore to Goh. Chief Justice Yong Pung Hao had sworn in Lee in that istana. As Prime Minister, Lee also became chairman of the People's Association. In his maiden National Day rally speech on August 22, 2004, Lee announced several new initiatives, among them the policy of the 5-day work week which removed the half-working day on Saturday. The plan took effect on January 1, 2005. In response to public feedback, maternity leave was also extended from 8 to 12 weeks after consultation with employers and unions. To encourage the growth of the birth rate in Singapore, the baby bonus scheme was expanded to provide financial support to women who bear a fourth child. In November 2004, Lee sparked a national debate when he proposed to build 2 integrated resorts (IRs), or hotel casinos. Despite the long-standing stance against gambling in Singapore, with the exception of regulated industries such as the Singapore Turf Club and Singapore Pools, the government was concerned its stance was hurting the economic competitiveness of the country, risking the loss of tourism revenue to other cities. In April 2005, despite some public opposition, the government approved the proposal. The IRs were built in Marina Bay and Sentosa. To limit the negative social impact of casino gambling, Lee suggested safeguards such as prohibiting minors from the casinos and charging an entrance fee for Singaporeans of S100 or S2000 for a yearly pass. The Casino Control Act was enacted into law on June 1, 2006, which regulated the operations of the casino operators and provided social safeguards intended to deter problem gambling. In February 2006, Lee announced a S$2.6 billion progress package to distribute budget surpluses in the form of cash, top-ups to the Central Provident Fund, rental and utilities rebates, and educational funds. The cash bonuses were distributed in early May 2006. As the announcement came 3 months before the 2006 Singaporean general election, it drew criticism that the ruling party was involved in vote buying.